Hi, this is Stacy from the Blue Keystone. I sew and sell modest clothing. I also have this YouTube resource. Today I'm going to talk about fabric. Fabric is something that affects all of us, and I'm going to start kind of and divide into like a stretch and a non-stretch. So I'm going to talk about stretch for a second here. This fabric is stretchy. It stretches this way, it stretches this way, it stretches this way. All directions it will stretch. This is a knit. So when your grandma a long time ago knitted, or maybe people are picking it up nowadays too and knitting and crocheting, and the way you twist those yarn, that thread, the yarn, makes different patterns. That is kind of the idea. This is it on a large scale, and when you have knits like this, you can't see the pattern on it. This is knit on a very, very small scale. The thread is very, very small. But this again will stretch all the different ways, and it's been twisted together so that it will stretch. Then you also have your, what people would call wovens. If you try to stretch along that selvage, so when you go to a big box store and they have fabric there, that raw edge that's at the bottom, or that you can kind of see the little thread sticking out like this on, that is the selvage. So if you take along the selvage where it's this raw edge here and you pull it, it typically does not stretch. And then if you could create a line from that selvage, like where the cutting people will cut it, then that's not stretchy either. This is a woven. And how they do that is in a big machine with many, many threads, and it goes in and out, up and over. And that does not create any stretch except for along the diagonal. I don't know if you can see the pattern on that side. Let's do it this way. That does stretch. Now this is important for if you're sewing, and on your patterns there'll be lines, grain lines, directions for you to get that line to match up here. You can see how you can pull that thread out. That's just because it's been woven. And this is so that you put that pattern here so that it sits right, because if you put it along like this, your fabric's going to stretch and it's going to be warped, and it's not going to look great. So you want to follow those lines. So for grain line, you may think, well, I'm not going to sew, so that doesn't affect me. Sometimes when you buy pieces that are already made and the sleeve won't sit right, or the side won't sit right, it's because sometimes there are companies that don't lay the fabric out so that it follows that selvage, and they just lay it so that it uses up as much fabric as possible, and that's why the garment doesn't sit right. So you have to watch out for that too. And you might not know until you've worn it a couple times that the sleeve is not right, or this part doesn't sit right. You might want to take notice of the company that made it and just keep that in mind as you continue to shop for that brand or that label. It's possible that they will cut corners. I do not do that with my shop. A lot of your people that are where you buy directly from, they care about how the garment fits you. But people that, there's so many different people in between, that care for the garment that's made is lost. So just be mindful of that. Along with wovens though, because they're not as easy to wear as knits, they have started to weave in elastane and weave in spandex into things that are woven. And so that allows you to stretch, but sometimes it only allows you to stretch one way, and it may not be this way, it may be this way. You also want to watch for that way, which way it stretches. If you're making a skirt, you don't want it to stretch from your waist to your knees. You want it to stretch from your left side to your right side. That's how you want it to stretch, this way, not lengthwise. So you need to pay attention to which way it stretches. Okay, so we talked about what is stretch and what is not stretch. And then we need to talk more about what is in the fabric. If this stretches and it's a woven, then that means that there's been elastic woven into the fabric one way or the other, or both ways. That is elastic. In with the other fibers. The other fibers could be a plethora of things. They're inventing more and more materials to make fabrics with all the time. Typically, your better fabrics for clothing, for anything, are your materials that are found naturally in nature. Your cotton, your silk, and your linen are ones that are found typically in nature. Cotton. So I've got, this is 100% cotton. This is 100% cotton. Notice it has stretch. This one does not. How is that? Remember, this is a woven. It is done with 100 strings, more than 100, thousands of strings, in and out, woven together. This is one string, the knitting process, like what you would do with one long string. That is the difference. It's the same thread. This one has many, many more than this one does. And the fabric is created in two different ways. The fabric that is natural, so your silk, your cotton, your linen, those will typically shrink. Now, cotton shrinks a little bit after the first wash. So I've heard people say, oh, I bought this fabric and it had elastane in it and it shrunk. The elastane did not shrink. The cotton shrunk. The cotton is the natural fiber. The elastane is plastic. That'd be like, I put water in the plastic bottle and the bottle shrunk. It's plastic. The cotton will shrink the first time. So if you bought a skirt at the store and it doesn't matter what it had in it, as far as elastic or spandex or Lorex, whatever they're putting in nowadays, it's the cotton that shrunk. So a good company will pre-shrink their fabrics. I pre-shrink my cottons and all my natural fibers. If you bought that skirt, you took it home, you wore it, you loved it, you washed it, and now it won't fit you. It's because the manufacturer did not pre-wash it, unfortunately. You just need to, there's no way, they don't label that on the tag, there's just no way to know whether that happened or not. If you're buying secondhand, hopefully, hopefully it has been washed before you wear it, so you're good to go on that front. Cotton is a natural fiber. It is fiber that has been grown, and then they stretch it into long, thin strings. Linen is the same way. It has been cut into long, thin threads. Linen is not as prone to shrinkage as much, although it will shrink some, typically like the first wash. Linen is very wrinkly though. If you like to iron or you like to hang dry your stuff, you won't have a problem with linen. But those of you that are like anti-iron, you go to the anti-ironing rally, you probably want to avoid linen because it will wrinkle really bad. It's probably not the best material for you to pick out, although it is natural and it is very stable. Your other fabric that's natural, so I'm just talking about main ones. The other fabric that's natural is silk, and silk is very expensive, but it is very soft. It is also very good for pillowcases. It's good for your hair. It's good for your skin. It allows you to breathe. It allows sweat to escape and just the cool air to come in. People don't know this, but cowboys used to use it as their bandanas a lot because of the qualities of letting air through but not letting the dirt through. Silk is a very valuable fabric, but most of the time it cannot be washed unless it's been treated with a chemical that keeps those fibers from shrinking up. It is a fabric that you have to hand wash. And contrary to popular belief, you can really hand wash something pretty easy. And silk, since it allows you to breathe and it allows your skin to breathe, it doesn't trap all that moisture and the sweat on top of it like polyester does, and you have to wash it every time because it stinks. Silk is a lot more, you wash it as much as you want to, but you are able to get away with a little bit more of maybe skipping a time or two washing it, because it does allow you to, your skin to breathe and to get rid of your sweat naturally. Then you have your polyesters and all kinds of things beyond that, and you have a kind of a middle ground. There is rayon, and there's a bunch of different stuff that's, I want to kind of call the middle ground nylon. They start with a natural fiber, and they kind of chemically treat it to make it a big liquid, and then they force that liquid through teeny tiny holes, and those holes are kind of like a long stream of liquid that dries either with air or liquid or water or whatever. It dries and it forms the strands, and sometimes those strands are stretchy in nylon's case. In rayon it's not. But that's how they're able to do rayon and nylon, and they're a form of natural fiber, but like for instance, I think it's nylon that starts with coal and it is made into nylon. So there's a lot of chemical process that goes in through that. So it's not considered natural, but it starts with a natural substance, so it's different than your polyester. Polyester, it will not breathe. It is actually made from plastic bottles, any and all kinds of plastic bottles. So your red one, your green one, your clear one, all of it. They do all kinds of chemical processes to make it into a form of liquid that they can again push through those little holes and allow to dry and to make fabric out of it. And some of it can be really soft and some of it can be really scratchy. Any way you look at it, polyester is like wearing plastic. It is plastic. And you think of, if you put on a plastic bottle with teeny tiny holes in it, it's not going to allow you to breathe. All that moisture is trapped inside your body, and it absorbs it, and it can make you uncomfortable. Some people can't even wear polyester altogether because of their skin reacts funny to it. So you probably, as much as possible, want to stay away from polyester. I will say I have a shop. There's stuff that's polyester in my shop. There's blends of polyester and cotton that you can get. For me, I like to keep my polyester on the bottom part. So if you're buying clothes or if you're buying fabric to make clothes, I try to keep polyester on the bottom part because it doesn't need to breathe as much as, say, my top or my jacket would need to breathe. And because polyester is a plastic, and some of the other forms of polyester are a form of plastic, they can melt it, and that dye can really sink in with just a little bit of heat. It can sink in. So polyester has the benefit of the color being really rich for a long time because it's been soaked into the fiber itself. Your cottons will fade after a while because that dye is kind of on top, if you will, of the threads. And so it does kind of fade in sunlight or whatever because of the natural fibers. It doesn't soak into the very core like it does poly. Don't let what that bar says on the fabric fool you or throw you off or make you nervous. Denim, twill, that all is how it's put together, how it's woven together. Just like this knitting is a different kind of knit, and you can do different stitches. You can do different stitches, if you will, with woven material. It can be woven in different ways as well, and those have different names. It doesn't mean anything about stretch though. Denim, twill, quilting cotton, it's all what it's either, well, quilting cotton's what it's used for, how it's made. It's pay attention to the fiber content. That is by far more important. So I've tried to take a very broad subject about fabric and make it into a bite-sized piece. I hope the information that I gave to you is helpful. It is my goal to make it as easy as possible for you to pick out clothes that you like, clothes that have good fabrics, clothes that fit you, that you can enjoy wearing, that make you feel like you look good. That is what I'm trying to do, and I'm using as many avenues as I possibly can. If you feel like you want some more information on fabrics, let me know. There's more stuff that I can cover. Also, there is a playlist after this that tells you how silk is made, how cotton is made, how rayon is made. I think I put the polyester one first. That one you need to watch. How they take plastic bottles and make polyester fabric out. It will change the way you look at polyester. Change the way I looked at polyester. I am here to help you. Let me know what you want. Visit thebluekeystone.com. Thank you so much for watching, and hit subscribe if you have the chance. Thank you.